Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy, also writing as Jennifer K. Lambert, writer of epic fantasy romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Delicious. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. Um, well into Indian summer here. Apparently, the definition of Indian summer, as I learned it long ago, was the return to warm weather after first frost. But at any rate, it doesn't count because we have not had our first frost here. But I do feel like we need a name for this summer weather. And I hear you, those of you out there who enjoy teasing me about whether it is autumn or summer. We are coming up on autumn equinox, so there is that. But it's the season of purple and gold in New Mexico. We have golden sunflowers and purple cornflowers everywhere, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And then the skies are this incredible blue that verges on violet. People ask me how my summer was, and I kind of feel like it vanished. I just feel like it evaporated into book tours and travel and all of that kind of thing. It was a good summer. I guess I am kind of admitting that it is now fall, although no frost yet. I was working on Strange Familiar, predecessor to Magic Reborn, through March. Then all of April working on the Among the Thorns so much all the time and not writing anything new. I did my writing hiatus. Some of you will recall that, where I redid my office, which I do not regret. I'm so glad I got that done. It looks so great. Other people can't see it the way I do, but it's so much more organized. It was exactly what I needed to maximize my efficiency. I should probably mention, I probably should have led off with this, but this is the first podcast with the fabulous Sydney doing the editing. So once I'm done recording this today, I'm just handing it off to her. So speaking of maximizing efficiency, you'll just have to let me know what you think. And yeah, go Sydney. So all of these things I'm doing to try to take burden off of some areas of my life and maximize what I can do. Theoretically, with Sydney taking over the social media, I can maybe write 3,000 words a day again. The good news in my world is that I've started writing again. Dun, dun, dun. I did start in on Magic Reborn a little bit at the beginning of August for like 3 days. So I almost don't count it because I only wrote something like 1,600 words. If I can write 3,000 words a day, 5 days a week, and write them really well so it requires very little revision, I could theoretically make my October 31st release date. What I swear, people, longtime listeners will know when I set this release date, I was like, I'm going to have this book done so early. There's no way I'm not going to make this release date. I thought I had actually arranged with my audiobook narrator that I would maybe deliver Magic Reborn to her in August. When you go to schedule a release on Amazon, a pre-release, uh, there's a little calendar that you can pick. You can set the dates, but it is grayed out past October 31st. Usually you can see where you're allowed to push it out to. And I thought that it was because I was in the doghouse from pushing before, and they say, oh, you can't do it for a year and all this kind of thing. So I looked to see if I could be excused, if I could be forgiven yet again, which on the one hand, I don't blame Amazon for not forgiving me. On the other hand, this is an annoying policy of theirs because none of the other retail platforms do this. Nobody else penalizes you for not making your release date or having to push it. It would be really great if we could get Amazon to stop doing that. So anyway, I did get on with Author Central, and they said, oh, well, the dates will be available in mid-October. Has anyone else seen this? That's kind of I don't remember it being like this before. So I thought, well, we'll see. We'll see how far I get. We'll see how it goes. If I can make that deadline, that'd be great. If I can't, alas. But back on the topic of like, what have I been doing with my life? So the office rehab then was in May. And then June, July, and August, I spent either traveling on book tour or revising Among the Thorns. And so this is the first time in 6 months that I'm drafting something new. And one thing that we talk about as authors is that, of course, nothing is truly a binary, right? But we all tend to either prefer drafting or editing, drafting or revising. There are some people who just hate the blank page and they would much rather be able to fiddle with what's there. I've learned to love revising. I don't know that I've learned to love it. I've learned to embrace it. When I was a newbie writer, I really hated having to revise. And I would, looking back on it now, quite arrogantly say things like that revising felt like fixing everything I didn't get right the first time. And it's like, why did I think I should get things right the first time? Now that I'm up to like 68 published titles, I don't expect to get things right the first or even the second time. And if Among the Thorns is any indication, maybe not the fifth time. But me, I love drafting. I love that opening the draft. I love just letting it flow and not having to do all that thinking work. So building up, getting back into the flow is a big thing. Longtime listeners will know I always compare building up word count to running a marathon, or at least learning to run. It's like the couch to 5K thing, I've been metaphorically sitting on the couch eating cookies and drinking wine for depending on how you slice it, at least the drafting muscle for 6 months. I need to, give myself time to ramp up. I'm not going to go out and run my 5K immediately as much as I want to. But I might see if I can, I feel very Chuck Tingle saying this, pound this one out. I would love to be able to write this one fast. I feel like I have the bandwidth. However, I know that I also have line edits coming. An exciting piece of news is I have seen the cover for Among the Thorns. I think it's not quite the final cover, but I think it's the very close to final cover. What they're doing is for the trade paperback version of Never the Roses, which will come out in June, they changed the cover. So it's got a slightly different cover than the hardback. And it's really great. It's got books on it. They were talking about how they realized that we'd kind of gotten away from the whole theme of books and how important books are to actually both stories, both Never the Roses and Among the Thorns. So the Among the Thorns cover is very similar in theme and mood to the trade paperback of Never the Roses. Very exciting. I feel like, yeah, I can say this. My editor, Allie, who is amazing, she reached out to Katherine Heigl. You all recall that Katherine Heigl did that amazing TikTok video about how much she loved Never the Roses, which was a highlight of my year, maybe. And she got an approved quote from Katherine Heigl. Via her assistant. I think Allie was vaguely disappointed not to get to correspond directly with Katherine Heigl, but the trade paperback has that quote on it, and I'm thrilled beyond measure to have the Katherine Heigl quote on there. So both covers are going to be beautiful. They're going to make a gorgeous set. This is like longtime listener podcast. If you're new to this, I hope you don't mind that so much of this is like, and the story continues. Actually, total aside, I saw my friend Megan the other day. She came over and we walked to a bar. We thought that was like a good combination of, we had talked about, should we take a walk or go to a bar? And I was like, we could walk to the bar. So it was a pretty decent little walk and it was great. But she was asking me, we hadn't seen each other for a couple of weeks, and we have this because she is also a writer, USA Today bestselling author. Uh, she was asking me like where things stood with something, and I said, okay, let me think. And she said, where we last left our heroine, it was and I'm just amused that we say that to each other. Oh yes, when we last left our heroine, she was trying to find this or trying to get her mother to do that or something like that. I did take a moment to remember my train of thought. That's what I get for doing those tangents. Longtime listeners will recall the book that was The Secret Project for a long time. I referred to it by various names over time. I know some of you have been trying to keep track of this, uh, but the most recent iteration, it was called Sex, Lies, and Ley Lines. And that has been out on submission. There was a lot of interest in it. There was movie interest in it and all these people, but no one has bought it. There's a few reasons for this, probably. When you get one offer and the agent goes back to the other editors and says, we have an offer on this book, then they quickly read it over the weekend. But otherwise, it slides down their pile. Especially if it starts, like at this point, I feel like it's starting to get stale, right? So when I was in New York in July, I have to make the posh face for that, and had dinner with my agent, we talked about this book and we talked about what we were going to do. And we agreed that we're going to pull it from submission at the end of October. So 6 weeks from now, we're going to, if no one has bought it. And so this gave Sarah an opportunity to contact all of those editors and say, hey, if you haven't bid by end of October, we're pulling it. And then I'm going to self-publish it. And I already talked to my fabulous cover designer, Revan, and she can do that book for me, cover for me. So she could do it in late November, I think. So as soon as I know, by the end of October, as soon as I know, then we will start. If I'm going to self-publish it, it'll be in December for the holidays. I think you all are going to love this book. I don't know why no one wants to buy this book. Oh, except for the other reason that I alluded to is the romantasy market is starting to get soft. Mostly because the traditional publishers have done what they always do, and they bought. And they bought a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily performing that well because they're kind of buying indiscriminately, right? So, but it doesn't hurt my feelings to self-publish that one. So, and I'm excited to get out in the world, and then there would be more of this book too. So yeah, I think I'm feeling more or less on top of things. Getting Magic Reborn, as many of you know, is the third book in that third trilogy of Bonds of Magic. So I'm going to tie up a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to have, I think, lots of POVs in this book, I realized. So I had this morning on the dog walk, I had a little bit of a epiphany is too strong of a word. It's not about hash browns, but it's. I did have a glimmer of like where the next chapter needs to be, and I realized that this one really needs to bring in everyone's POVs again for the big culmination. We're going to finish out this arc, so I'm excited to get that done. All right. On that note, I'm going to get to work. I'm going to pop this off to Sydney, What Luxury. So be impressed with her editing, and I'm sure that there will be gradual changes over the next few weeks as she marshals me into line and makes this into a truly professional podcast. All right. I will talk to you all on Friday. You all take care. Bye-bye. Sorry, a lion from the tall grass emerged, or Killian, the same way. You can see Killian looking under the fern at us. He's outside. The other day he had a cotton rat in his mouth, which was twice the size of his head. So I was looking to see if he had any animals. but he does not. He's so cute. All right, I've got to go liberate him. Be right back.